The Vajra Prajna Paramita Sutra. Translated by Tripitaka Master Kumarajiva of Yaoqing. Thus I have heard. At one time the Buddha was staying in the Jita grove of the garden of the benefactor of orphans and the solitary together with a gathering of great bhikshus, 1250 in all. At that time, at mealtime, the world-honored one put on his robe, took up his bowl, and entered the great city of Sravasti to beg for food. After he had finished his sequential begging within the city, he returned, ate the food, put away his robe and bowl, washed his feet, arranged his seat, and sat down. At that time the elder Subhuti arose from his seat in the assembly, uncovered his right shoulder, placed his right knee on the ground, put his palms together with respect and said to the Buddha, "How rare, world-honored one, is the Tathagata who remembers and protects all bodhisattvas and causes them to be well endowed. World-honored one, if a good man or good woman resolves his mind on Anattara Samyak Sambodhi, how should he dwell, how should he subdue his mind?" The Buddha said, good indeed, Subhuti. It is as you say. The Tathagata remembers and protects all bodhisattvas and causes them to be well endowed. Now listen attentively, I shall tell you. A good man or good woman who resolves his mind on Anattara Samyak Sambodhi should thus dwell, should thus subdue his mind. Yes, certainly, world-honored one. I want to hear. I am delighted to listen. The Buddha told Subhuti, all bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, should thus subdue their minds with the vow, I must cause all living beings, those born from eggs, born from wombs, born from moisture, born by transformation, those with form, those without form, those with thought, those without thought, those not totally with thought, and those not totally without thought, to enter nirvana without residue and be taken across to extinction. Yet of the immeasurable, boundless numbers of living beings thus taken across to extinction, there is actually no living being taken across to extinction. And why, Subhuti, if a bodhisattva has a mark of self, a mark of others, a mark of living beings, or a mark of a life, he is not a bodhisattva? Moreover, Subhuti, as to the act of giving, a bodhisattva should not dwell anywhere when he gives. He should not dwell in forms when he gives, nor should he dwell in sounds, smells, tastes, tangible objects, or mental constructs when he gives. Subhuti, a bodhisattva should give thus, he should not dwell in marks. And why? If a bodhisattva does not dwell in marks when he gives, his blessings and virtues are immeasurable. Subhuti, what do you think? Is space in the east measurable? No, world-honored one. Subhuti, is space in the south, west, north, or in the intermediate directions, or above, or below, measurable? No, world-honored one. Subhuti, the blessings and virtue of a bodhisattva who does not dwell in marks when he gives are just as immeasurable. Subhuti, a bodhisattva should only dwell in what is taught thus. Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Tathagata be seen by his physical marks? No, world-honored one, the Tathagata cannot be seen by his physical marks. And why? It is because the physical marks are spoken of by the Tathagata as no physical marks. The Buddha said to Subhuti, all with marks is empty and false. If you can see all marks as no marks, then you see the Tathagata. Subhuti said to the Buddha, world-honored one, in the future will there be living beings who, when they hear such phrases spoken, will truly believe? The Buddha told Subhuti, do not speak in such a way. After the Tathagata's extinction, in the last 500 years, there will be those who hold the precepts and cultivate blessings who will believe such phrases and accept them as true. You should know that such people will have planted good roots with not just one Buddha, 2 Buddhas, 3, 4, or 5 Buddhas, but will have planted good roots with measureless millions of Buddhas. All who hear such phrases and produce even one thought of pure faith are completely known and completely seen by the Tathagata. Such living beings thus obtain measureless blessings and virtue. And why? Those living beings have no further mark of self, of others, of living beings, or of a life. No mark of phenomena and no mark of no phenomena. If living beings' minds grasp at marks, then that is attachment to self, to others, to living beings, and to a life. For that reason you should not grasp at phenomena, nor should you grasp at no phenomena. Regarding that principle, the Tathagata often says, all you bhikshus should know that the Dharma which I speak is like a raft. Even the Dharma should be relinquished, how much the more so what is not dharmas. Subhuti, what do you think? Has the Tathagata attained another Samyaksambodhi? Has the Tathagata spoken any Dharma? Subhuti said, as I understand what the Buddha has said, there is no concrete Dharma called another Samyaksambodhi, and there is no concrete Dharma which the Tathagata has spoken. And why? The Dharmas spoken by the Tathagata cannot be grasped and cannot be spoken. It is neither Dharma nor no Dharma. And why? Unconditioned Dharma distinguishes worthy sages. Subhuti, what do you think? If someone filled 3,000 great thousand world systems with the 7 precious gems and gave them as a gift, would he obtain many blessings and virtue? Subhuti said, very many, world-honored one. And why? Such blessings and virtue are not of the nature of blessings and virtue. Therefore the Tathagata speaks of many blessings and virtue. If, on the other hand, a person were to receive and hold from this sutra even so few as 4 lines of verse and speak them for others, his blessings would surpass the previous ones. And why? Subhuti, all Buddhas and all Buddha's Dharma of Anuttara Samyaksambodhi come forth from this sutra. Subhuti, the Buddha Dharmas spoken are no Buddha Dharmas. Subhuti, what do you think? can a Srotapanna have the thought, I have obtained the fruit of Srotapanna? Subhuti said, No, world-honored one. And why? A Srotapanna means one who has entered the flow, and yet he has not entered anything. He has not entered forms, sounds, smells, tastes, tangible objects, or mental constructs. For that reason he is called a Srotapanna. Subhuti, what do you think? Can a Sakradagaman have the thought, I have obtained the fruit of Sakradagaman? Subhuti said, No, world-honored one. And why? A Sakradagaman means one who returns once more, but he actually does not have a returning. For that reason, he is called a Sakradagaman. Subhuti, what do you think? Can an Anagaman have the thought, I have obtained the fruit of Anagaman? Subhuti said, No, world-honored one. And why? Anagaman means one who does not return, but he actually does not have no returning. For that reason, he is called Anagaman. Subhuti, what do you think? Can an Arhat have the thought, I have obtained Arhatship? Subhuti said, No, world-honored one. And why? Actually, there is no Dharma called an Arhat. World-honored one, if an Arhat had the thought, I have attained Arhatship, that would be attachment to self, to others, to living beings, and to a life. World-honored one, the Buddha says that in my attainment of the no-strife samadhi, I am the foremost among men, that I am the foremost arhat free from desire. World-honored one, I do not have the thought, I am an arhat free from desire. If I had the thought, I have attained arhatship, then the world-honored one could not say, Subhuti is the foremost of those who delight in practicing arana. Since Subhuti actually has no practice, he is called Subhuti, who delights in practicing arana. The Buddha said to Subhuti, What do you think? Was there any dharma which the Tathagata obtained while with burning lamp Buddha? No, world-honored one, there was actually no dharma which the Tathagata obtained while with burning lamp Buddha. Subhuti, what do you think? Does a bodhisattva adorn Buddha lands? No, world-honored one. And why? The adornment of Buddha lands is no adornment, therefore it is called adornment. Therefore, Subhuti, the bodhisattva, Mahasattva, should thus produce a pure mind. He should produce that mind without dwelling in forms. He should produce that mind without dwelling in sounds, smells, tastes, tangible objects, or mental constructs. His mind should produce a thought without dwelling anywhere. Subhuti, suppose a person had a body like Sumeru, king of mountains. What do you think? Would that body be big? Subhuti said, Very big, world-honored one. And why? It is said by the Buddha to be no body. Therefore it is called a big body. Subhuti, if there were as many Ganges rivers as there are grains of sand in the Ganges river, what do you think? Would the grains of sand in all those Ganges rivers be many? Subhuti said, Very many, world-honored one. The Ganges rivers alone would be incalculable, how much the more so the grains of sand in them. Subhuti, I will now tell you the truth. If a good man or good woman used the 7 precious gems to fill 3,000 great thousand world systems equal in number to the grains of sand in all those Ganges rivers, and gave them as a gift, would he obtain many blessings? Subhuti said, very many, world-honored one. The Buddha told Subhuti, if a good man or good woman were to receive and hold from this sutra even so few as 4 lines of verse and speak them for others, his blessings and virtue would surpass the former's blessings and virtue. Moreover, Subhuti, you should know that all the gods, men, and asuras of the world should make offerings to any place at which even so few as 4 lines of verse from this sutra are spoken and so forth, just as they would to a Buddha's shrine or temple. How much the more so to any place where people can completely receive, hold, read, and recite the sutra. Subhuti, you should know that such people realize the foremost and rarest dharma. In any place the sutra text is found, there is the Buddha or a reverent disciple. Then Subhuti said to the Buddha, world-honored one, what should the sutra be named? How should we respect and hold it? The Buddha told Subhuti, the name of the sutra is Vajra Prajna Paramita. You should respect and hold it by that name. And why, Subhuti, Prajna Paramita is spoken of by the Buddha as no Prajna Paramita, therefore it is called Prajna Paramita. Subhuti, what do you think? Is there any dharma spoken by the Tathagata? Subhuti said to the Buddha, world-honored one, nothing has been spoken by the Tathagata. Subhuti, what do you think? Are all the motes of dust in 3,000 great thousand world systems many? Subhuti said, very many, world-honored one. Subhuti, all motes of dust are spoken of by the Tathagata as no motes of dust, therefore they are called motes of dust. The world systems are spoken of by the Tathagata as no world systems, therefore they are called world systems. Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Tathagata be seen by means of the 32 marks? No, world-honored one cannot see the Tathagata by means of the 32 marks. And why? The 32 marks are spoken of by the Tathagata as no 32 marks, therefore they are called 32 marks. Subhuti, a good man or good woman might give up his life as many times as there are grains of sand in the Ganges river, but if a person were to receive and hold even so few as 4 lines of verse of the sutra and explain them for others, his blessings would be greater. Then Subhuti, upon hearing the sutra spoken and deeply understanding its purport, wept and said to the Buddha, how rare, world-honored one, is this sutra so profoundly spoken by the Buddha. From the time I obtained the wisdom until the present I have never before heard such a sutra. World-honored one, if someone hears the sutra with a pure mind of faith, then he produces real mark. That person should be known to have accomplished the foremost and most rare merit and virtue. World-honored one, the real mark is no mark, therefore the Tathagata calls it the real mark. World-honored one, now as I hear this sutra, I believe, understand, receive, and hold it without difficulty. If in the future, in the last 500 years, there are living beings who when they hear this sutra believe, understand, receive, and hold it, such people will be foremost and most rare. And why? Such people will have no mark of self, no mark of others, no mark of living beings, and no mark of a life. And why? The mark of self is no mark. The mark of others, the mark of living beings, and the mark of a life are no marks. And why? Those who have relinquished all marks are called Buddhas. The Buddha told Subhuti, so it is, so it is. If someone hears this sutra and is not frightened, or alarmed, or terrified, you should know that person is most rare. And why? Subhuti, the foremost Paramita is spoken of by the Tathagata as no foremost Paramita, therefore it is called the foremost Paramita. Subhuti, the Paramita of patience is spoken of by the Tathagata as no Paramita of patience. Therefore it is called the Paramita of patience. And why? Subhuti, it is as in the past when the king of Kalinga dismembered my body. At that time I had no mark of self, no mark of others, no mark of living beings, and no mark of a life. And why? When I was cut limb from limb, if I had a mark of self, a mark of others, a mark of living beings, or a mark of a life, I would have been outraged. Subhuti, further I recall that in the past, for 500 lives, I was the patient immortal. During all those lives I had no mark of self, no mark of others, no mark of living beings, and no mark of a life. For that reason, Subhuti, a bodhisattva should, relinquishing all marks, produce the mind of another Samyak Sambodhi. He should produce that mind without dwelling in forms. He should produce that mind without dwelling in sounds, smells, tastes, tangible objects, or mental constructs. He should produce that mind that does not dwell anywhere. Any dwelling of the mind is no dwelling. Therefore the Buddha says, the mind of a bodhisattva should not dwell in forms when he gives, Subhuti, a bodhisattva, to benefit all beings, should give thus. All marks are spoken of by the Tathagata as no marks, and all living beings are spoken of as no living beings. Subhuti, the Tathagata is one who speaks the truth, who speaks the actual, who speaks what is so, who does not speak what is false, who does not speak what is not so. Subhuti, the Dharma obtained by the Tathagata is neither true nor false. Subhuti, a bodhisattva whose mind dwells in phenomena when he gives is like a man who enters darkness, who cannot see a thing. A bodhisattva whose mind does not dwell in phenomena when he gives is like a man with eyes in the bright sunlight who can see all kinds of forms. Subhuti, in the future, if a good man or good woman can receive, hold, read, and recite this sutra, then the Tathagata, by means of all Buddha wisdom, will completely know and see that person. That person accomplishes measureless and boundless merit and virtue. Subhuti, a good man or good woman might in the morning give up as many bodies as there are grains of sand in the Ganges river, and again at noon might give up as many bodies as there are grains of sand in the Ganges river, and again in the evening might give up as many bodies as there are grains of sand in the Ganges river, giving up bodies in that way throughout measureless millions of kalpas. But if someone else were to hear this sutra and believe it with no reservations, his blessings would surpass the former ones. How much the more so if people can write out, receive, hold, read, recite, and explain it for others. Subhuti, the merit and virtue of this sutra are inexpressible, inconceivable, boundless, and beyond all praise. It is spoken by the Tathagata for those who have set out on the great vehicle, those who have set out on the supreme vehicle. If people can receive, hold, read, recite, and speak it for others, they are completely known by the Tathagata. They are completely seen by the Tathagata. Such people accomplish immeasurable, inexpressible, boundless, inconceivable merit and virtue and thus sustain the Tathagata's Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. And why? Subhuti, one who delights in lesser teachings, is attached to a view of self, a view of others, a view of living beings, and a view of a life. He cannot hear, receive, hold, read, or recite the sutra or explain it for others. Subhuti, the gods, the men, and the asuras of the world make offerings at any place where this sutra is found. You should know such a place as a stupa where everyone should respectfully bow, circumambulate, and scatter incense and flowers. Moreover, Subhuti, if a good man or good woman receives, holds, reads, and recites this sutra, and if people ridicule him, that man has karmic offenses from previous lives which destine him for the evil paths. But because in his present life he is ridiculed by others, his previous karmic offenses are destroyed and he will attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Subhuti, I recall that in the past for limitless asankhya kalpas prior to burning lamp Buddha, I encountered 84 thousands of millions of billions of nayadas of Buddhas, and made offerings to them all, and served them all without exception. But if there is a person in the final period who can receive, hold, read, and recite this sutra, the merit and virtue he obtains is 100 times more, 1,000 times more, 1,000,000 billion times more, to the point of being so great it exceeds all calculation and comparison, than the merit and virtue I gained from making offerings to all those Buddhas. Subhuti, if I were to express thoroughly the merit and virtue of a good man or good woman, who in the final period receives, holds, reads, and recites the sutra, those who heard might go insane and disbelieve. Subhuti, you should know that this sutra's meaning is inconceivable, and that its resulting retribution is also inconceivable. Then Subhuti said to the Buddha, world-honored one, if a good man or good woman resolves his mind on Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, how should he dwell? How should he subdue his mind? The Buddha told Subhuti, a good man or good woman who has resolved his mind on Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi should think thus, I should take all living beings across to extinction. Yet when all living beings have been taken across to extinction, there actually is not a single living being who has been taken across to extinction. And why? Subhuti, if a bodhisattva has a mark of self, a mark of others, a mark of living beings, or a mark of a life, then he is not a bodhisattva. For what reason? Subhuti, actually there is no dharma of resolving the mind on anattara samyak sambodhi. Subhuti, what do you think? While the Tathagata was with burning lamp Buddha, was there any dharma of anattara samyak sambodhi attained? No, world-honored one. As I understand what the Buddha has said, while the Buddha was with burning lamp Buddha, there was no anattara samyak sambodhi attained. The Buddha said, so it is, Subhuti. There actually was no dharma of anattara samyak sambodhi which the Tathagata attained. Subhuti, if there had been a dharma of anattara samyak sambodhi which the Tathagata attained, then burning lamp Buddha would not have given me the prediction. You will in the future attain Buddhahood and be named Sakyamuni, since there actually was no dharma of anattara samyak sambodhi attained. Burning lamp Buddha gave me the prediction saying these words, you will in the future attain Buddhahood and be named Sakyamuni. And why? Tathagata means the thusness of the Dharma. If someone were to say that Tathagata attains anattara samyak sambodhi, Subhuti, actually there is no dharma of anattara samyak sambodhi which the Buddha attains. Subhuti, the anattara samyak sambodhi which the Tathagata attains. In that, there is neither true nor false. For that reason the Tathagata speaks of all phenomena as buddhadharmas. Subhuti, all phenomena are spoken of as no phenomena. Therefore they are called phenomena. Subhuti, it is like a person's big body. Subhuti said, world-honored one, the person's big body is spoken of by the Tathagata as no big body, therefore it is called a big body. Subhuti, a bodhisattva is also thus. If he were to say, I should take measureless living beings across to extinction, then he would not be called a bodhisattva. And why? Subhuti, there actually is no dharma called a bodhisattva. For that reason the Buddha spoke of the dharma as being devoid of self, devoid of others, devoid of living beings, and devoid of a life. Subhuti, if a bodhisattva were to say, I shall adorn Buddha lands, he would not be called a bodhisattva. And why? The adornment of Buddha lands is spoken of by the Tathagata as no adornment. Therefore it is called adornment. Subhuti, if a bodhisattva comprehends that all dharmas is devoid of self, the Tathagata calls him a true bodhisattva. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the Tathagata have the flesh eye? So it is, world-honored one. The Tathagata has the flesh eye? Subhuti, what do you think? Does the Tathagata have the heavenly eye? So it is, world-honored one. The Tathagata has the heavenly eye? Subhuti, what do you think? Does the Tathagata have the wisdom eye? So it is, world-honored one. The Tathagata has the wisdom eye. Subhuti, what do you think? does the Tathagata have the Dharma eye? So it is, world-honored one. The Tathagata has the Dharma eye. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the Tathagata have the Buddha eye? So it is, world-honored one. The Tathagata has the Buddha eye. Subhuti, what do you think? Has the Tathagata spoken of the sand grains in the Ganges River? So it is, world-honored one. The Tathagata has spoken of that sand. Subhuti, what do you think? If all the grains of sand in one Ganges river became an equal number of Ganges rivers, and all the grains of sand in all those Ganges rivers became that many Buddha lands, would there be many, very many, world-honored one? The Buddha told Subhuti all the various thoughts which occur to all the living beings in all those Buddha lands are completely known by the Tathagata. And why? All thoughts are spoken of by the Tathagata as no thoughts, therefore they are called thoughts. For what reason? Subhuti, past thought cannot be got at, present thought cannot be got at, and future thought cannot be got at. Subhuti, what do you think? If someone filled the 3,000 great thousand worlds with the 7 precious gems and gave them as a gift, would that person for that reason obtain many blessings? So it is, world-honored one. That person would for that reason obtain very many blessings. Subhuti, if blessings and virtue were real, the Tathagata would not have spoken of obtaining many blessings. It is because blessings and virtue do not exist that the Tathagata has spoken of obtaining many blessings. Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Tathagata be seen in the perfection of his physical form? No, world-honored one. The Tathagata cannot be seen in the perfection of his physical form. And why? The perfection of physical form is spoken of by the Tathagata as no perfection of physical form, therefore it is called the perfection of physical form. Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Tathagata be seen in the perfection of marks? No, world-honored one. The Tathagata cannot be seen in the perfection of marks. And why? The perfection of marks is spoken of by the Tathagata as no perfection of marks. Therefore it is called the perfection of marks. Subhuti, do not say the Tathagata has the thought, I have spoken Dharma. Do not think that way. And why? If someone says the Tathagata has spoken Dharma, he slanders the Buddha due to his inability to understand what I say. Subhuti, in the Dharma spoken there is no Dharma which can be spoken, therefore it is called the Dharma spoken. Then the sagacious Subhuti said to the Buddha, world-honored one, will there be living beings in the future who will believe this sutra when they hear it spoken? The Buddha said, Subhuti, they are neither living beings nor no living beings. And why? Subhuti, living beings are spoken of by the Tathagata as no living beings, therefore they are called living beings. Subhuti said to the Buddha, world-honored one, is it that the Tathagata in attaining Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi did not attain anything? The Buddha said, so it is, Subhuti. As to Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, there is not even the slightest dharma which I could attain, therefore it is called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Moreover, Subhuti, this dharma is level and equal, with no high or low. Therefore it is called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. To cultivate all good practices with no self, no others, no living beings, and no life is to attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Subhuti, good practices are spoken of by the Tathagata as no good practices. Therefore they are called good practices. Subhuti, if there were heaps of the 7 precious gems equal in amount to all the Sumeras, kings of mountains, in 3,000 great world systems, and someone gave them as a gift, and if someone else were to take from this Prajna Paramita Sutra as few as 4 lines of verse, and receive, hold, read, recite, and speak them for others, his blessings and virtue would surpass the previous ones by more hundreds of thousands of millions of billions of times than either calculation or analogy could express. Subhuti, what do you think? You should not maintain that the Tathagata has this thought, I shall take living beings across. Subhuti, do not have that thought. And why? There actually are no living beings taken across by the Tathagata. If there were living beings taken across by the Tathagata, then the Tathagata would have the existence of a self, of others, of living beings, and of a life. Subhuti, the existence of a self spoken of by the Tathagata is no existence of a self, but common people take it as the existence of a self. Subhuti, common people are spoken of by the Tathagata as no common people, therefore they are called common people. Subhuti, what do you think? Can one contemplate the Tathagata by means of the 32 marks? Subhuti said, so it is, world-honored one. One can contemplate the Tathagata by means of the 32 marks. The Buddha said, Subhuti, if one could contemplate the Tathagata by means of the 32 marks, then a sagely will-turning king would be a Tathagata. Subhuti said to the Buddha, world-honored one, as I understand what the Buddha has said, one should not contemplate the Tathagata by means of the 32 marks. At that time the world-honored one spoke a gatha, which says, if one sees me in forms, if one seeks me in sounds, he practices a deviant way and cannot see the Tathagata. Subhuti, you may have the thought that the Tathagata did not attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi by means of the perfection of marks. Subhuti, do not think that the Tathagata did not attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi by means of the perfection of marks. Subhuti, you should not think that those who have resolved their minds on Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi affirm the annihilation of all phenomena. Do not have that thought. And why? Those who have resolved their minds on Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi do not affirm the annihilation of marks. Subhuti, a bodhisattva might fill world systems equal to Ganges river's sands with the 7 precious gems and give them as a gift. But if another person were to know that all phenomena are devoid of self and accomplish patience, that Bodhisattva's merit and virtue would surpass that of the previous Bodhisattva. And why, Subhuti? It is because Bodhisattvas do not receive blessings and virtue. Subhuti said to the Buddha, World-honored one, how is it that Bodhisattvas do not receive blessings and virtue? Subhuti, since Bodhisattvas cannot be greedily attached to the blessings and virtue which they foster, they are said not to receive blessings and virtue. Subhuti, if someone were to say the Tathagata either comes or goes, either sits or lies down, that person would not understand the meaning of my teaching. And why? The Tathagata does not come from anywhere, nor does he go anywhere. Therefore he is called the Tathagata. Subhuti, if a good man or good woman were to pulverize 3,000 great thousand world systems into motes of fine dust, what do you think? Would that mass of fine dust be large? Subhuti said, large, world-honored one. And why? If that mass of fine dust motes actually existed, the Buddha would not speak of it as a mass of fine dust motes. And why? The mass of fine dust motes is spoken of by the Buddha as no mass of fine dust motes. Therefore it is called a mass of fine dust motes. World-honored one, the 3,000 great thousand world systems are spoken of by the Tathagata as no world systems, therefore they are called world systems. And why? If world systems actually existed, then there would be a totality of marks. The totality of marks is spoken of by the Tathagata as no totality of marks. Therefore it is called a totality of marks. Subhuti, the totality of marks cannot be spoken of, but people of the common sort greedily attach to such things. Subhuti, if someone were to say that the view of a self, the view of others, the view of living beings, and the view of a life are spoken of by the Buddha, Subhuti, what do you think? Does that person understand the meaning of my teaching? No, world-honored one, that person does not understand the meaning of the Tathagata's teaching. And why? The view of a self, the view of others, the view of living beings, and the view of a life are spoken of by the world-honored one as no view of self, no view of others, no view of living beings, and no view of a life. Therefore they are called the view of self, the view of others, the view of living beings, and the view of a life. Subhuti, those who have resolved their minds on Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi should thus know, thus view, thus believe and understand the Dharma and not endow the Dharma with marks. Subhuti, the marks of the Dharma as spoken of by the Tathagata are no marks of the Dharma, therefore they are called the marks of the Dharma. Subhuti, someone might fill measureless asankhya's of world systems with the 7 precious gems and give them as a gift. But if a good man or good woman who has resolved his mind on Bodhi were to take from this sutra even as few as 4 lines of verse and receive, hold, read, recite, and extensively explain them for others, his blessings would surpass the others. How should it be explained to others? With no grasping at marks, thus, unmoving. And why? All conditioned phenomena are like dreams, illusions, bubbles, shadows, like dewdrops in a lightning flash. Contemplate them thus. After the Buddha spoke this sutra, the elder Subhuti, all the bhiksus, bhiksunis, upasakas, upasikas, and the world with its gods, men, and asuras heard what the Buddha had said, rejoiced, believed, received, revered, and practiced.